You can run a company, raise children, make difficult decisions, hold other people through crisis. Then you walk into your family home, and within 5 minutes, you are 12 years old again. You hear something in your mother's voice. You notice your father becoming quiet. Your sibling starts looking unsettled. And before anyone asks you for anything, your body has already responded. Your shoulders tighten the way they used to. Your attention moves away from you and towards the room, and you begin sensing who is upset, what might happen next, what needs to be softened, what needs to be fixed. You may be a completely different person everywhere else, but around your family, an older identity returns because your body remembers the person you once had to become in order to belong. No one necessarily gave you the role directly. They never have said, you must save us, you must make us proud, you must tell the truth, you must become another parent. You must disappear so everyone else can remain stable. The role formed quietly through what was happening around you, through what automatically earned you love, through what prevented conflict, through what the family needed but could not provide for itself. And after enough years, the role stopped feeling like something you did and it began to feel like who you are. So let's find out who you had to become in your family. Number one is the savior. Perhaps your mother was deeply unhappy. Perhaps your father carried disappointment, anger, or defeat. Perhaps one of your siblings was struggling and nobody seemed to know what to do. And you noticed before anyone explained it, the long silences around dinner, a bedroom door slamming, the way your mother's face changed when your father came home, the tension that everyone pretended was not there. Now you were young, but something inside you decided, I have to help. You became funny when the room felt heavy, and then you started becoming helpful when someone was overwhelmed. Easy when your parents already had too much to carry. You offered comfort before you knew even how to comfort yourself. You learned to listen for pain underneath people's words, and you began to experience love as movement towards someone else's distress. And this still happens to this day. Maybe your partner withdraws and your mind starts racing. You can't settle until you've called, explained, reassured, and offered a solution. And the pain creates urgency inside you. This adaptation can actually give you a gift. And the gift of the savior is sensitivity. You notice suffering beneath anger, fear beneath distance, longing beneath defensiveness, and people can actually feel profoundly seen by you. But this also carries a shadow. And the shadow is that you can begin to believe that love must involve rescue. And you naturally feel drawn to people who are wounded, unavailable, or constantly in crisis. You might confuse being needed with being chosen. You may stay because you can see who someone can become and you see their potential, even while the person continues to hurt you. And when someone is steady, emotionally available, and able to care for themselves, you may not know what your role is. And the savior does not only ask, do I love this person? They ask, does this person need me? Today, this identity may make you compassionate, perceptive, and able to hold enormous emotional depth. But it can also leave you carrying adults who were meant to carry themselves. And the question is not whether you should stop caring. It is whether you can love someone without taking responsibility for the life they are choosing. You are allowed to care for someone without entering their pain as though it belongs to you. Number two is the mirror. Perhaps your family was very invested in appearing fine. The tension was obvious, the unfairness was obvious, but the distance between what people said and what was actually happening was obvious, and no one wanted it named. And then there was you. You asked why one sibling was treated differently. You noticed when affection was used as control. You challenged the story that everyone had agreed to repeat. You said the sentence that changed the atmosphere at the dinner table. And suddenly you started being labeled as the difficult one, the dramatic one, the one that always causes problems when everything else is going fine. But sometimes the person called the problem is the person revealing the problem. The mirror often experiences truth physically. a heat rising through the chest, a pressure in the throat, a restless feeling when everyone is pretending, the sense that your body just cannot remain quiet while something false is being presented as reality. The gift of the mirror is discernment. You see beneath appearances. You notice what is being concealed, and you are the pattern interrupter. You interrupt patterns that have survived because nobody else was prepared to name and challenge them. But there's also a shadow, and that is that you may have identified too much with opposition. If truth was the only way that you could remain intact in your family system, you may now enter every room looking for what is wrong. You may struggle to relax when things are genuinely peaceful. You may feel responsible for exposing every contradiction in every facet of your life. And you may believe that if you do not tell people the truth, that you are betraying yourself. And underneath the courage, there may be loneliness. The loneliness of seeing something long before people are ready to admit it. And today, this identity can make you honest, it can make you intuitive, and it can make you unusually perceptive, but it can also keep you braced against the world. The question for the mirror is, can I honor what I see without making it my responsibility to make everyone else see it too? Now, you never need to deny the truth, but you also do not have to build your identity around being the only person willing to confront it. Number 3 is the success story. Perhaps you are the child whose achievements change the atmosphere in the room. Your grades, your talent, your career, your income, your beauty, the relationship that you have. Your success gives the family something to speak about with pride. When your name is mentioned, people's faces light up. Your achievements did not belong entirely to you. They became evidence that the sacrifices had been worthwhile, that the family had raised someone exceptional, that the next generation had gone further. And you do not simply become successful, you actually become the family's success story. This role can look beautiful from the outside. It can look like achievement, victory, but the body often tells another story. You may feel that your chest is just tight after every accomplishment because another expectation is already forming. A strange emptiness when the applause ends. The inability to tell your family that the career, marriage, or life that they admire actually doesn't feel that right for you. The gift of the success story is possibility and new directions for your lineage. You have opened doors that nobody before you could open. You've changed what the women after you believe is available to them. You carry vision, discipline, and the ability to create extraordinary things. But the shadow is that you may no longer know where your desire ends and the family's pride begins. You may stay in professions because the title means something to your parents. You may remain in a marriage because the image of success has become larger than the truth of your experience. You may keep achieving because admiration is the safest form of love that you know how to receive. And somewhere beneath all of that is the fear that without the success, that you are ordinary, you are invisible, you are a disappointment. And today, this identity makes you feel accomplished, ambitious, and highly self-directed. But it can also leave you feeling But it can also leave you living as a representative of the family rather than as a person with private and independent desires of your own. So the question for the success story is, if nobody could be impressed by this, would I still want it? Not whether you should destroy everything that you've built, but whether the life itself still feels alive when status, approval, and image are removed. You are allowed to honor everything that your success has meant to your family, but you are also allowed to discover what is true for you. Number 4 is the third parent. Now, perhaps one of your parents was absent, overwhelmed, unwell, working constantly. Maybe they were emotionally unpredictable or simply unable to carry the full weight of the parental role. So you stepped in. You made sure that your younger sibling had eaten. You remembered school forms. You calmed people down after arguments. You listened to a parent speak for hours about the relationship between them and your other parent. but you were far too young to hold all this, but you still became the dependable one. People praised you. They called you mature. They said you were wise for your age. They trusted you because you were so capable. But sometimes what adults call maturity is a child who has understood that nobody else is coming. The third parent often lives with a body that never fully goes off duty. You wake up already thinking about what needs to be handled, and your mind is always 3 steps ahead. Your phone is always closed. Even during rest, part of you is constantly scanning and monitoring. You notice what is missing before anyone else does, and you carry what will happen if nobody takes charge. Now, this sounds like capability, right? This sounds like someone who's highly efficient. And that can be the gift of the third parent. You can hold complexity, you can respond in a crisis, you can create order when everyone else is overwhelmed, and people really trust you because you've spent a whole lifetime learning how to remain functional under pressure. But there is a shadow, and the shadow is that you may feel safest when you're carrying more than everyone else. You may choose people who need managing because competence is where you know your value. You may resent that nobody takes care of you while making it almost impossible for anyone else to lead. You may offer help before people have had the chance to offer it to you. And underneath all that strength is often grief. Grief for the child who was admired for coping when what she needed was actually protection. Today, this identity might make you a powerful leader, a mother, a practitioner, a businesswoman, but it can also turn every relationship into another place where you must organize, anticipate, and hold everything together. So the question I have if you identify with the third parent is what would happen if you allowed another adult to be responsible? Number 5, the anchor. The anchor became the person who kept the family stable by forgetting herself. Her role was quieter than others. She may not have saved anyone directly. She may not have challenged the family. She may not have achieved visibly or taken care of the younger siblings. She simply became the person who was needed the least. Perhaps your mother was volatile, so you became gentle. Your father was anxious, so you became reassuring. Your siblings took up most of the emotional space, so you learned not to add anything more. You knew how much of yourself the room could tolerate, so you softened your opinions, you lowered your voice, you waited for a better moment to say what you needed, and eventually the better moment actually never came. And the anchor often looks calm while carrying enormous contraction. A breath that does not quite reach the bottom of the lungs, a throat that feels closed around difficult words, exhaustion after family gatherings, even when nothing openly happened, a blankness when someone asks, "So what do you want?" Because you have spent so long orienting towards everyone else that your own desire feels far away. The gift of the anchor is actually steadiness. You can remain present when emotions are high. You can bring calm into difficult spaces, and people often feel really safe with you because you don't collapse when life becomes uncomfortable. You carry patience, loyalty, and a beautiful capacity to contain complexity. But the shadow is self-erasure. You may believe that peace depends on your silence, that love means asking for less, that being good means never becoming the source of another person's discomfort. You may stay in situations that diminish you because leaving would unsettle everybody else. You may become the woman that everybody relies on while nobody truly knows. And today, this identity can make you grounded, devoted, and deeply emotionally spacious, but it can also disconnect you from your anger, from your longing, your pleasure, and your truth. And you may know exactly what everyone else feels and have no idea what is alive inside of you. So the question for the anchor is, can I remain loving without disappearing? Because stability that requires the loss of yourself is not peace. You are allowed to have weight in the room. You are allowed to change the atmosphere. You are allowed to disappoint people who were most comfortable when you needed nothing. And you are allowed to use your voice to ask for what you need and express how you feel. These identities are not flaws. Each one carries a gift. The Savior carries compassion. The mirror carries truth. The success story carries possibilities and new beginnings. The third parent carries capability, and the anchor carries steadiness. The difficulty begins when the gift becomes the only version of you that feels permitted, when the Savior is never allowed to need, when the mirror is never allowed to soften, when the success story is never allowed to fail, when the third parent is never allowed to be held, and the anchor is never allowed to take up space. Then the role that once protected your place in the family begins to shape every relationship you enter. And when you start leaving the role, your family may resist. They may ask, "What's wrong with you? Why have you changed?" When the Savior stops rescuing, she might be called uncaring now. When the mirror stops arguing, people may accuse her of being distant. When the success story chooses an unconventional life, the family may feel embarrassed or betrayed. And when the third parent says, "This is not mine to handle," people start calling her selfish. When the anchor finally speaks honestly, everyone may say, "What is wrong with her? She has completely changed." And they will be right. You have changed. You're no longer willing to purchase belonging with a version of yourself that costs you your life. Look, the thing is, families are complex. We become different things in different moments, but none of these roles is the whole you. They were forms of adaptations and intelligence, a ways a younger version of you found safety, connection, and belonging. You don't need to shame her. She was doing something that she had to do to remain part of the family, but you no longer have to send her into every room on your behalf. You can keep the gift that you have learned from this role and release the burden, and release the shadow. Your family may have shaped a role at some point, but they do not get to decide who you remain. You do.